Hey everybody, it's Monty Mott here. This is another episode of the Shareholders podcast on the Mighty Sharp Network. And I have a great guest today. I've had some authors on the show before, but not an author of this type of book. So we're going to get into that in a second. But her name is Patrice Lorick, and she's on with us today. How are you doing today?
I am doing great. Beautiful day. I'm doing awesome.
Yes, thank you for coming on the show. We really do appreciate it. So, first of all, you're an author and
Yes.
a writer, and I want to ask you then. First question: have you always been into writing, or is this something you kind of stumbled in? You know, you have a hidden talent and you didn't even know you could do it, and it's like, wow, okay, I'm kind of good at this. Or have you always been a writer?
Well, I've always liked to write stuff, like just poems and stuff. I remember in elementary school, I wrote a poem and then I drew like a book and I wrote the poem in the book. And I guess it was so good, they held it or they placed it in the library for months. So I guess you can say I started when I was a little lad, but I've always liked to write stuff and write poems. And but as far as a book, this is my first.
Hey, no, wait a minute. You just said they put your poems in the library?
Yeah, the library at school was like hanging over the door like for a few months. So,
so
I
you
guess
were good.
I know I was probably in 3rd or 4th grade, but I mean I still have the poster. I keep it with me, but it was that good that they held it in there. So maybe I guess
wow.
It was kind of a hidden talent. I didn't think about it. So,
and you just did, man. Okay, I don't know if many of us could say that. You know, normally our parents would put our stuff on the refrigerator, but they ain't putting it in the library.
Yeah, the library. So
okay, so y'all see, we got a real pro here already. I mean, she's already got a claim works, but so
pro.
you actually wrote a children's book.
Yes.
And that, like I said, I've had a few people on that wrote self-help books and mental books, health books, but a children's book. So first of all, what made you want to even go that route in terms of, because obviously you could write, but what made you want to go the route of writing a children's book?
Well, one day my older sister, she just texted me. We were talking about something and she was like, you should write a children's book. And I was like, what makes you think I want to write a children's book? And so she was like, well, you're very creative, which I mean, I am. I do have creativity stuff. But she's like, you're very creative. I think you would be pretty good in writing a children's book. So I maybe thought about it maybe for a day. And I was like, you know what? I have no idea where to start. I have no idea how to get a book done, what I'm supposed to do. But I got a pen, out of paper, and I just started writing. And that's how it all started.
See, so I want to focus right there on what you said, because there's a lot of people that will get an idea for something. Or like you said, a friend will say, man, you good at X and Y, or you could cook, or you could sing, or whatever. And we'll try to, and the person be like, yeah, I don't know. What do you think was the catalyst that really made you, because it kind of goes with my other question as well, push forward toward that? Because writing a book, it's one thing to write something down, but there's a process of things that you have to do. What was really kind of that motivational thing that got you to even, okay, let me keep doing this. Let me see where this can go. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's definitely a process. So I have a couple of friends. I have a friend who wrote a book. So I always tell myself, if that person can do this, what's stopping me from doing it? I can do this too. So I just got to researching and talked to my husband about it. He said, don't rush into anything, but just take your time. God will make it happen. And that's what happened. And I mean, I wanted to do something. I wanted to do something, for my kids. I mean, it could bring extra income. So, that was my train of thought.
And so, okay, and I'm glad you brought it up. So in writing a book for children, were your kids like the main catalyst for it? Or was it, because you probably could have wrote about a lot of things, but did you look at your kids and be like, I want to write something for them, or did it just kind of happen that way?
Well, since you said I could have written another book, I guess I should have mentioned this, kind of started a book for young girls before, like maybe like on purity, modesty, but it wasn't going in the right direction. It wasn't going in the direction I wanted it. So I kind of stopped. So I just kind of didn't do anything with that. But yes, I wanted my children, I wanted this to be something that they can, I mean, because the message in there is very important. So I wanted it to be something that they can understand and something that they would take in and they can read to their kids when they get older. So the message, I'm not going to say what the message is, but it's very important. And I want them to definitely know that and keep that in their mind and their brains when they're reading it and when they're going about their life.
So then, and I'm sorry, I should start with this. The book is called Growing Up with Frankie.
Yes.
And
yes, I have it right here.
There we go. There we go. Little product placement. Cool, cool.
Okay.
So what then would you tell a parent that is, you know, in the bookstore or online looking, what would you tell them about your book that would be needful to read to their children or for their children to read?
Okay. It's a great family book. It's geared towards children. Adults can definitely learn this message, the message from it, get something from the message, especially in the times that we're in today. So it teaches kids, it's filled with humor, filled with fun. It talks about some neat occupations that maybe kids may not have heard of before. So the message is just something that, you know, you go out through life and it's talking about what they want to be when they grow up. So you can definitely be whatever you want to be when you grow up. But there's one thing that's the most important before anything else that you need to think about and be before anything you do in life. Or whatever you do in life, that needs to be your mind, your train of thought. Is this what I am while I'm doing this job? Mm-hmm.
We're talking today on the Shareholders podcast with Miss Patrice Lorick, and she is an author of a children's book, and it's called Growing Up with Frankie, and this is already a great interview that we're having right now. So I want to ask you then, in terms of, you know, I want to take it a little different way. With 2020, and there's just been a lot of, you know, we all in it, we all been going through it, and things like that. And for reading in general, you know, because it's not a lot that for kids to be able to do outside, unfortunately, with all of that. How important is that? Is it, or should I say this? Because I remember as a kid, when I was growing up, I used to love to go to the library and read and get books, you know, before internet, I'm that old, before all that stuff. But it seems like kids don't really read as much anymore. How important is it? Now, I'm sure you make your kids read, but how important is it if for the parents listening to be like, you know what, had the kids put down the iPad or the video games and actually read a book, you know what I mean?
Yes, and I am definitely guilty of that. When I'm doing something, I'm like, here, just go take this tablet and leave me alone for a few minutes. And I've noticed, you know, while they're on their tablet, I'm on my cell phone and we're not really interacting, you know. So, I mean, I love technology, but sometimes it could be a little bit over excessive. So I think it's important to actually hold a book in your hand and turn the pages and read, you know, actually read rather than being on your tablet all day. But it gives, I guess when you're on your tablet, the kids are by themselves mostly. Yeah. But if the parents, if you're reading the book and the parents, this is a children's book, so most parents are going to read it to their kids, you're interacting with each other. And there's questions in the back of my book as well, so the parents can ask kids questions, and they can talk about the discussion question, or talk about what the book's talking about. So it definitely gives the parents and the kids great interaction rather than them just, you know, scrolling back and forth on the tablet or iPad, and you're not really getting that much interaction and not really talking about what they're looking at per se. Well, I'm speaking for myself, talking about what they're, you know, looking at, rather than if you're reading a book, you can have more discussion.
So what age range is this book maybe best for in terms of the kids?
So I would say ages maybe from 4 to 12. I did a reading at a Christian school not too long ago. So the ages were about maybe 4 to 12, and they all understood, you know, they were in tune to what I was saying. So that's a pretty good range, age 4, age 12.
So you just hit on something I want to ask you as well. Being a writer, is there a difference in terms of you being a Christian writer, or are you just considered a writer of books? You know what I mean? Is there, you know, when you get into like publishing all that, is there a difference?
Yes. I call myself a Christian author because because I'm actually writing on my second book, working on my second book, and that's going to be Christian based too. So I call myself a Christian author because that's what I'm moving towards in my next book. And I'm hoping to have lots of Frankie books. So they're all going to be Christian based. I mean, you can still call me just an author. I'm still an author, but I call myself a Christian author.
Yeah. So, so this is going to be a whole series with Frankie then.
That's my plan. Like I said, my second book is already in the works. It's almost done. I think it's even more exciting than this one.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping just to have a lot of Frankie books, just life lessons for kids. And like I said, it's a children's book, but adults can definitely learn these messages and lessons as well.
I love when books are serious. I do. I love that. I love when you can finish one and then you can find out, okay, cool, there's another one. Because if you like the book, you obviously like the character, so you want to see more of it.
Exactly.
I want to ask you then, what is something that you did not know in this process that you learned? Maybe maybe somebody's going to see this and be like, man, you know what, I'm gonna write my book. She's writing, let me try that. What is something you learned that you wish you had known that you can maybe help somebody else with?
It is time consuming. I spent lots of late nights working, you have to, get the formatting together. If it's a children's book, you have to make sure your illustrations are good. Because what do kids want to see when they read a children's book? They want to look at the pictures. So they should be able to look at the pictures and tell you kind of what's going on in the story. So you want to, when you're writing the book, you want to make sure, okay, can I have an illustration for what's on this page? Or are you just writing stuff and then when it's come time to do the illustrations, you're like, I can't really put, illustration to the words. I think a lot of people think that you can write a book and it's just going to sell. You can't just write a book that's going to show. You have to promote, you have to market, you have to tell people about it. And so I'm learning about that right now. Of course, social media has been a big help, but you have to go around to libraries, bookstores, like your local bookstores, and ask, hey, introduce your book, and are you willing to buy this book so you can sell it? There's a lot of things, but for children's books specifically, I would say the illustrations are a big thing. Making sure it's colorful, illustrations are on every page, because that's what kids want to see. They want to see pictures.
You know what? That is something I did not even think about, and that is huge for it, because I've talked to other authors, but they just wrote adult books. But that is really important, the illustration. So do you work with an illustrator? Like, how do you find, because that's...
I did. Yes, and it can be expensive as well. So I had some people that, gave me this number that was ridiculous. And I was just like, there's no way that, you can illustrate yourself. You just have to know how to put it together. And I don't know how to do that. Yeah. So my illustrator, he was recommended to me from someone. And he worked with me. I had lots of changes, but he did exactly what I asked him to do. And all my illustrations are beautiful. Vibrant. My book is very diverse. You can see I wanted it to be diverse. So, so the characters had to look like what I wanted. I wanted an Asian, Latina, Black, white. So he just listened to me and did what I asked him, and it worked out perfectly.
That is really key, because on this show, I talk to people and they're, successful in a lot of different ways, but there's always some sort of collaborative effort. I don't care what you're doing. And I think sometimes people be like, I'm just going to do this. I don't need no help. I don't need anybody to tell me. And you're never going to accomplish something without. Yeah. So even with you got the idea for the book, you wrote the book, but you do have to, I'm so glad you brought that up, because I think sometimes people just feel like, well, if I can do everything on my own, I don't need any help. No, You're going to need some help. So I'm glad you brought that up, because that is, that's something I didn't even think about, because you're so used to seeing the pictures, but you don't realize maybe the author didn't draw these pictures. So now they got to approve, and you got to tell them what you want. And like you said, whatever's on that page, will this picture go with what I'm talking about?
Yes, will it go with that? So I'm learning that with my next book as I'm writing. I'm like, okay, as you're writing, I'm thinking about what is this going to look like? What is this illustration going to look like? I didn't really do that too much on this book, which is still good, but now I'm learning and I know better.
So is it easier now? Not that it's easier to write a book, but is the process easier with your second book now, kind of knowing what you know?
It is, because I know what to expect. Like I said, I had a friend that wrote a book. I actually had two friends that wrote a book, and I bugged them. And every day I know you were tired of me asking you this question, but how do I do this? Where do I go from here? And they helped me throughout the whole process. Like, they never told me that they're getting tired of me, bugging them and asking. I mean, till the very beginning to the very end, I bugged them. So they were a great help for me. Like you said, it's not by yourself. You have to ask. If you want something to happen, you have to ask for help. You can't do it on your own.
That is, when you say that, I'm reminded of a story of, the late Kobe Bryant. And he, after basketball, he did a documentary and all that stuff. And in his passing, people would talk about how Kobe would just hound these people and ask all these questions. How do I do this and this and this and this? And just exhaust the person. But that's if you don't know, that's how you have to do it. And
yes, because somebody helped them, so
exactly,
willing to help
pay it forward. This has been a great interview with Patrice Lorick. I've really enjoyed this time. I want to ask you one other question. What books do you read? What are I love to get recommendations and things. What books inspire you, or that you're reading right now, maybe?
Now, I have two children's books. So since we're talking about children's books, and these are the people that helped me, it's called Tiny Tales.
Okay.
It's a novel, and it's geared towards maybe middle school kids, but it's so well written and lots of mystery. So I read this book like pretty quickly, and this is one of the friends that helped me with writing my book. As you can see, her cover and everything is beautiful. And then my other friend also wrote another children's book. And this is Malik Chooses Generosity. This is also an awesome message. But, I think all kids would love this book. The pictures are vibrant, and her illustrator actually did she's the one that recommended me to my illustrator.
Oh, okay.
And it's funny because I write books, but I'm not a huge reader actually. I will read a book, but you have to put it in my hand and say, hey, Patrice, this is a good book. Like, I don't go to this. My husband will go to the bookstore all day and read books. That's not me. So it's I feel kind of bad writing a book, and I want you to read my book, but I'm not, I'm not a reader.
I love that. So you're married to the reader, but you're the writer. So
yes.
That's great. That is great. So I'm sorry, I missed one question. You kind of been hitting on it, but have you had people that actually kind of mentored you? And you kind of said it because your friends have been helping you out, but is anybody who's been a key mentor in your life?
Of course, I'm going to say my parents. They, they inspired me. I guess this book kind of is inspired by them too, because they've always raised us up, talking about God, Jesus, going to church. So I know they're very proud of me for writing this book, but they have definitely been a great mentors in my life. And I'm going to say my husband, because he's a minister. I had to approve. He had to prove everything. Is this right? Am I saying this right? So those are my three. I'll say those are my three mentors.
Awesome. So Patrice, give your plugs, because I want people to buy this book. Let them know where they can find you, find the book, social media, all that stuff.
Okay. So my book is on Amazon, and it's actually doing awesome. Just type "Growing Up with Frankie." If you do purchase from Amazon, I would love for you to leave me a review. And my hashtag on Instagram is Raising3Loricks. And then you can just find me on Facebook at Patrice Lorick.
Awesome.
Since I'm always talking about my book on those platforms.
And listen, like you said, there's a promotion side to this, so you know what I mean. It's you gotta get out there and do that. Patrice, thank you so much for coming on. This was really amazing. And
thank you. I'm sweating because I was so nervous. This is my first podcast, so I'm like,
No, I'm glad we got a chance to talk. People, please, I know I got friends that watch and listen to this show that got kids. So especially in this time, we don't know with the kids going back to school, all that, hey, give them a good book to read.
And it's not long. It's pictures on every page, but it's not long. It's very short. So.
I feel like LeVar Burton a little bit, reading Rainbow. We got that vibe going. So
I love that show.
Yeah, listen, you know what, real quick. that show was so influential for me with books. I always wanted to be one of the kids reviewing a book. I was always jealous of those kids, but it still really helped. I wish they still had that going on. I don't know. They don't still. I don't think they do. But
as far as I know, my kids don't talk. I don't think if I mention it to them, they wouldn't know what that is.
But definitely check it out. Check out. She's got a beautiful family too. Check her out on social media, you guys. It's a good watch. But support that book, especially from you see, she's a really wonderful person. Thank you for coming on, Patrice. I appreciate the time. All right, have a great and blessed day. Okay.
You too. Thank you for having me.
All right.
This has been a production of the Mighty Sharp Network. Executive producer is Monty Mont. Watch the corners and always stay sharp.